Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Boxing Social Podcast in association with Betfred, with me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. Delighted to be joined today by, your talkSPORT, your Sky Sports,
I'll take it.
Of course, Boxing Talk with Ade, Mr. Ade Oladipo, back in the booth. Nice to see you, mate. How you doing?
Good, not bad. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. What have you been up to? As I just mentioned there, you've become one of the busiest men that I kind of speak to nowadays. You used to message me all the time and
right?
ring me and stuff like that. I can't even get you to get back to me. What have you been up to?
Dude, it's been super busy. Like you mentioned, talkSPORT. talkSPORT's probably been the busiest, especially for me in the last sort of 12 months. I've got my own show on talkSPORT 2 now, Monday to Fridays, 1 to 5.
Tune in.
Make sure you tune in. I've got a show on Sundays on talkSPORT with Andy Cole, which has been an eye-opener, impressive. Still doing stuff with Sky Sports, about to fly out to Africa for ESPN, and obviously trying to run my YouTube channel, Boxing Talk with Ade. So, look, it's been busy, but I prefer being busy than just twiddling my thumbs. So, yeah, apologies for not answering your call, but I'm here. Yeah.
That's okay.
I'm here.
I do only jest, that is. As I say, very, very busy. Just touching on kind of, I know you're branching out and doing other bits and pieces like football. You mentioned with Andy Cole and stuff. Yeah. Is that a little bit weird? Like, I mean, I grew up watching football, watching Andy Cole and Dwight York play out front for Man United. And now you're doing a show with him. Very strange.
Like the first day he came in, obviously trying to play it cool. But then I think, wait a minute, that's Andy Cole, who literally I've grown up watching. I'm at that age where I remember him vividly. I remember him breaking my heart as a Liverpool fan so many times. So it's strange to see him and then interact with him and then have kind of off-air conversations about his personal life. And I've read his book, and there's a lot to Andy Cole that you kind of have to unpack. And it's my job to try and get as much out of him as possible. Like, he's the star of the show. I'm just the guy asking the questions, but they want to hear what Andy Cole has to say. So it's been interesting. And not only that, but my football knowledge has had to go up as well. Like, yes, I love football, but I love boxing a lot more. So I've had to learn a lot more about football and just watch old tapes, things I can't remember, just so the talkSPORT listeners don't attack me. Because they're known to do that, right? They're known to he doesn't know what he's talking about. So
I like how you really geezered up the accent.
Yeah, white man, isn't it? So, he don't know what he's talking about. What's he on here for? So I've got to make sure my knowledge is on point. But look, it's a good challenge. I love a challenge, and I'm happy with the space I'm in right now. It's really good.
It's a strange time because obviously a lot of people in the last 12 months in particular have kind of seen their working environment or their working roles change in the vast majority of cases for the worse or for the negative. Whereas 18 months ago, we're kind of, we've had this conversation so many times. We're kind of speaking to you about your YouTube channel, and
dude,
you've gone from, I'm trying to pick my words carefully. You've gone from, let's say, having a lot more time on your hands and doing your YouTube
call
channel.
It what it is. I was doing nothing.
To now where you are now. Like the ride, even considering the last 12 months, which has not been great for anybody, still must be quite dramatic for you. It's a significant shift for the positive as well, which is a really good thing to see at the minute, because everything's always doom and gloom, so it's nice to see.
Yeah, no, you're right. Look, we've had conversations and about just kind of where I am, what am I doing? And I didn't know what I was doing, right? The YouTube was always that thing that kind of kept me going, just to sit down and just talk shit on my channel and just sit down and talk. That was all I was doing. There were no job opportunities. Yes, I was flying out to Africa a bit, but it was inconsistent work once a month, not enough to pay the bills. And then all of a sudden, it's just a flood of work.
Why do you think that was? Do you think just right place, right time?
No, there's a couple of
eventually, sending out, I know everybody's always applying for jobs, sending CVs out and show reels and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think working for Sky on the January transfer window last year was a big thing, right? You get into Sky and that was massive. That's kind of like the Mount Rushmore, right, in this country anyway. So I think that kind of, everyone's like, oh, who's that? That no one's seen me before or heard of me.
Your laptop died on your first day?
Laptop died on the first day, and I think that helped as well. It's weird how it worked, because Soccer AM then clipped it and put it on their channel. Then millions of people saw it. Then talkSPORT were like, oh, we saw you on Soccer AM. Do you mind coming down? But look, I have to be honest as well. I joined talkSPORT at a time when the massive Black Lives Matter movement was happening. So everyone almost had to get someone black in the door. And I was kind of in the door, and I was like, okay, look, he needs to go. Like, we need to push him as much as we can. So people were ticking boxes, but you take advantage of those boxes being ticked. So I definitely came in at a right time, because you're right. The last 12 months during the pandemic have been tough for everyone with work. But for me, it's just worked out well. But as much as I even sometimes second guess, was I chosen because I was black? I feel like even if that was the case, I'm still there now. So I'm still doing enough to kind of, when now the conversation has died down, but Ade's still there doing his stuff. So look, you take advantage of what you can. and I've taken advantage of it, and now we're just kicking on with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's interesting that you would say. I think we've actually spoken about this previously. But it's also, as you mentioned there, don't sell yourself short, man.
Yeah,
if you weren't up to the job, no matter if you were black, white, green, blue, orange, whatever, you wouldn't have the job. So you have kept it. Congratulations.
I have.
What's it like? We've not even started talking about boxing.
We will.
That's absolutely fine. What's that been like? Is it? You're kind of known as one of the hardcore voices in the YouTube game. The kind of to camera stuff is not something that I've done an awful lot of in the past. It's not. Yeah. It's not something that a lot of people do very well, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Well, not you. You do great. If it's you who's watching this, you're brilliant. Not you. But you have like a really engaged audience who I know are really, really supportive of you, which must be brilliant. Like, and for them to see you from that journey of, the green chair.
Yeah.
And I know you did your little tour and even years and years ago when you were doing your show. That must be brilliant for them all to kind of come on the ride and enjoy that and share that with you.
They love it. I think they love it. The only sort of one thing they kind of ask me not to do is go soft. Like, Ade, we love you for your hardcore opinions. I'm like, well, yeah, I can't really diss Sky if I work for Sky now, can I? Like, come on. I can't say things about the broadcasters anymore. So I've had to tone it down just a little bit. But yeah, they are on the ride with me. Like, when I do my lives, I see people in the comments that have been there forever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I remember you like 4 or 5 years ago, and they've still been there. And obviously when I do my Instagram stories, they see kind of behind the scenes things they wouldn't really see before. So yeah, they're like, I've got the craziest fans, honestly. I say fans, subscribers. They send me bottles of alcohol. Like routinely, no joke, I probably get a bottle of alcohol once every 2 weeks.
That's mad.
Like, I go home, there's a bottle of alcohol on the doorstep. Like, they just constantly send me alcohol, which is crazy. Because they see me drink whiskey in my channel. They obviously think I'm an alcoholic now, and I've got this sort of, I don't know, like I'm moonlighting as an offer license or something. So they keep sending me bottles. But yeah, I think look, boxing fans are the best fans in the world. I mean, they can be a bit crazy, as we know, and we spoke about it off camera. But I think when they're behind you, they're behind you.
I mean, maybe people are trying to get you drunk, so you're a bit more loose-lipped with your opinions now. You've gone
They've
corporate.
done that, dude. They've done that, and sometimes I watch the videos back and think, "What have I just said?" Clearly, I'm going to be in trouble. Like, even when I diss the pay-per-views, and I do still diss them. It's just who I am, I think.
You have to be impartial. The moment that you visibly, like, I don't think anybody will. I think you can be forgiven for toning down a little bit, but if you go full on company shill, then I think that's probably not on.
It's not going to make sense as well. So like if there's a bad pay-per-view, I still will mention, maybe that shouldn't be a pay-per-view, and maybe they should reduce the price. But I can't do what I used to do, which is, this is effing disgraceful. Sky should be, well, I work for Sky. They pay me money, not bad money either. So yeah, we can't do that anymore. But I still try and keep it as best I can on the green chair, because that's the thing I love doing more than anything. So all the things that I have done, and I've done a lot in the last 18 months, like you said, but there's nothing better for me than sitting on the green chair where I feel most comfortable. And look, I don't say, you're a hardcore boxing guy. I'm definitely below you in terms of my boxing knowledge, but I try and say the best I can say from a fan's perspective, and I love the green chair more than anything. Yeah,
it's kind of like your spiritual home, isn't it?
Honestly, dude, when I sit in there and plug the camera in, I still use my Samsung phone. This is what I used to film people. Everyone thinks there's like a digital camera behind me. There isn't.
Mixing desk.
You've been there. There's nothing, right? When you came, there was not even mics. So
oh God,
there was no mics, dude. So yeah, that's why I always tell people, just start a YouTube channel. Like, everyone wants the fancy setup, and I get it, right? Because they see things like this and all the camera equipment. Nice. I mean, this isn't how it started. It kind of builds up slowly but surely. All you need to do is start with a camera. Maybe a mic, a plug-in mic, and that's it. Good to go.
When I first started filming, so I used to have a camera, but I didn't have an external mic. And I was, at the time, I just didn't have any money. I used to borrow a friend of mine's camera to go and film at press conferences and stuff. And because you only have the inbuilt mic, I used to have my phone, and I used to record on my phone. I used to put the phone underneath the camera and interview people like that, and then would have to take the audio off my phone, sync it up on the Mac. Which was also borrowed at the time, and then put it all together. So where there's a will, there's a way. You make an interesting point about kind of people starting their YouTube channels. It's a conversation I had with somebody a couple of nights ago. Always feel like, I don't know, not necessarily a hesitance or whatever, but like a reluctance from some people who are already kind of doing it with startup YouTube channels. And because it is obviously a massive saturated market.
Yeah.
Do you get, I'm sure you do get people messaging you and asking you for tips and
hundreds.
Information on how to start up and set up their channel. What would you say to people who are kind of looking to be the next Ade Oladipo, so to speak.
I wait, if I'm honest with you, because I've given people advice and they've done 1 or 2 videos and they've not got the numbers they want. I think people expect for some odd reason to drop a video and it to get 7,000 views and for them to see monetization in the bank immediately. And I'm like, what? Like my first 400 videos were just for the love of the sport. There was no money, there was no big numbers. I think like 80 views, 70 views, you know, and then it started going up. But I see people now reach out to me and like they've done 1 video and it's got 80 views and they're asking for advice. I'm like, no, the advice is do more.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you advice until I see like 50 videos down and there's a consistency there. And then, I might jump on and say, why don't you try that? Why don't you try this? But I think a lot of people get so despondent immediately and they just stop. Everyone wants to be the next Box and Social or IFL TV. Sorry for mentioning your competitors on here. Is that okay? Is that all right?
TV.
You're not going to clip that bit out, are you? Yeah, that's going to stay.
I don't edit interviews.
Okay, IFL TV. Everyone wants to be them, and I'm like, doesn't work like that. Do you know what I mean? How many people have you gone to and you've seen at shows that are just not there anymore?
Yeah, people come and go all the time.
Yeah, and I think I want to see consistency before I give any advice. So yeah, for me, I don't really help out people until 15, 20 videos later. But then I do. But then I give advice.
And it's also like the best way to learn is to just go and do it yourself, particularly when you're starting off, because there's going to be certain things that work for you. I mean, I have conversations with people, like particularly recently, like the early portion of the year is always kind of when you get like the influx of emails and messages and stuff, because everybody's sat around at Christmas and they're like, oh man, I fucking hate my job and I want to go back.
I could do this.
I'm going to do that. And then like everybody kind of wants to go and not necessarily boxing, but kind of go and chase something at the start of the year. So you always get like quite a lot of messages, and that's I think the best piece of advice to give someone. If you love the sport and you actually really want to cover it, just go and do that. You'll learn kind of what works for you. I can't tell you what's going to work on your channel. I can have a guess, but it is only a guess. And I think people are easily discouraged, and like it's kind of expected somewhat, like to kind of, you know, you go into it with all of the best hopes and wishes in the world, and it doesn't necessarily work straight away. But nothing worth having comes easy.
Boxing's so accessible as well. Like, forget, Park, Frank Warren shows and Matchroom shows. There's so many small shows that you can go and cover, and they want you to go and cover because they need eyes on the sport. Go and cover them. I think everyone wants immediately to go to the AJ bloody Fury potential. You know what I mean?
I had people ask me recently. People ask me recently who've been doing it for like 6 months. Like, who do I need to speak to for Joshua Fury accreditation?
Okay.
Like,
yeah. Who do I need to speak to for Joshua Fury? You know what I mean?
Like, it's seeming like people, I don't know, maybe kind of with that lingering in the background, see it as an opportunity to kind of go and do that.
You should do, and I don't think you've not done it yet, a behind the scenes video of what you do at a show. Like someone just film.
Gotta go to a show first, mate.
I think someone needs to see the work that goes in. I think people think the interviews are lined up. Like Eddie Hearn's just wait. I think people need to see the chase, the hurry, the upload, the edit, everything that goes into it for you to put a video out, especially one of the big shows as well abroad. It's a hard graft. I think people think it's just a case of watching a fight. You know, you got your front row, you got your press accreditation, it's hunky-dory, and then to get these interviews are easy. No. I don't think people know that. I think people need to see that sometimes.
I think we probably will do some behind-the-scenes stuff when things return to some level of normality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't been to it. I've only been to one show in
What's going on with you in shows? Like what is happening with Rob Tebbutt and going to boxing shows? You must miss it desperately.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, so I had this conversation last night with Anthony Lever from Matchroom. Shout out Anthony Lever, a good friend of mine, good friend of the social. And like, somebody needs to get me into a show to get me off Twitter, to be honest with you. Like, I'm bored, mate. Like, and don't get me wrong.
I can tell when you start going back and forth with people, when you give them more than one answer, I'm like, oh, what's Rob doing?
But like, please don't confuse, like somebody said to me the other day, like, oh, like, shouldn't you be working? I am working all the time. Yeah. Like we have kind of, you know, things set up whereby I'm not necessarily doing all of the interviews at the minute. You'll see why, hopefully, well, not hopefully, you'll see why soon in a few weeks, why I've not been about as much doing the interviewing. But like, just in general at the minute, I miss the hustle and bustle of shows, man. Like when you kind of, when you do this job and when you do kind of boxing and work in something that you love, like it becomes like a massive part of my identity. Like
I was shocked that you went to the Canelo Yildirim one.
Now,
I thought you might want to go to Miami, get a bit of a suntan, enjoy life.
I don't think anybody wants to see me walking around the beach. But like, so with Canelo Yildirim, so Andy obviously did Canelo Smith before Christmas. Yeah. I think at the time, because it was in like, once Joe Biden had come in and Trump had left. So Trump's executive order allowed people to go in and work in America before Christmas. Now, Andy was always going to do Canelo Smith because of his relationship with Callum Smith and Joe Gallagher. It just worked out for him to do that. And then when it came around to Canelo Yildirim going back to America, it was a kind of, I don't think at the time, and I think it's changed now and it's going to change again because things are opening up and changing at such a rapid rate. But that if you went before Christmas and you had an executive order that allowed you to work, then that was still valid. But new applicants, I don't think were able to for something like that. So
that's so you wanted to go. So you would
but again, like Andy did. So like this is the thing about working with a team, and this is why I don't like. We are working on a lot of stuff at the minute because that's going to be coming in kind of the next few weeks or the next month or so. But I don't need to do all the interviews.
No, Andy's great. You've got others. Andy's great.
And Andy can do the interviews. Ryan obviously does our socials. He can do the interviews if needs be. And, he's more than capable to kind of fill in. But also, like, I think this is why I love doing the podcast, why I get so excited to do the podcast, is because it's face-to-face, human interaction. You look somebody in the eyes and you can speak to them. Like, Zoom is difficult to kind of strike up any type of rapport.
I'm not a fan.
Like, you're not in it. I'm sat home in my bedroom most of the time, small place, and like there's nowhere else for me to go. My daughter's running around screaming and smashing the place up. So you have to kind of go and lock yourself away. And it's quite like, it gets quite lonely. And it gets quite boring and repetitive. And, we've worked throughout COVID. We've not furloughed any of our staff, and thank God for that. We've been able to keep the company afloat. We've also been able to kind of support ourselves, myself, Ryan, and Andy, which has been great. It's been a very difficult time, but because there's been a lack of shows, and the shows that have been around, we've not really been at. It's been really difficult, and it does kind of grind you down. And the last show I went to was Conor Benn, Sebastian Formella. Before that, it was Wilder Fury 2.
Are you going to the next show Matchroom putting on? Watch this space.
I'm waiting. So, look, I didn't necessarily think we'd be talking about it, but we'll talk about it. I don't really care. If I don't talk about it, I will tweet about it, so it doesn't matter.
There you go.
Lawrence Okolie's boxing for the world title. Shane McGuigan, his trainer. Obviously, it's no secret. I'm good friends with Shane. I've known Shane for a long time. Covered his fighters an awful lot. Anthony Fowler and Lawrence Okolie. I both knew that they were with him before he was with anybody, and I was there watching them train when we could go and kind of going back and forth to the gym. So, and obviously Crispin Smith, somebody I've known since he's turned over as well. And, I've got a good relationship with that card. I will be very disappointed if I don't go. I think like with a lot of the shows, like I do understand it's not easy.
Yeah.
And as much as I like to play it up, don't take everything I say on Twitter seriously.
Twitter's not real.
It's not real. Discard your camera's there.
Okay.
That's your camera.
Okay.
Discard most of it, but like it will be shit not to go. I understand why it's why I can't go to, or we can't go, or even indeed Seconds Out or Fight Hype or Fight Hub, like the other big channels, like them going or not being able to go. There's 4 media slots. You've got like Mike Costello, who's an absolute legend. Like, I've got no right to be going anywhere ahead of Mike Costello. You've got like National Papers, Coogan, who's got the biggest YouTube channel. So like, I get it. It's not
okay. Then, but how do you feel? Look at me stirring trouble here.
I don't care. Like,
how do you feel then when like a behind the gloves get it?
Well, I don't know.
No, I'm not trying to say as a Michelle Joy Phelps. I'm trying to say as an American publication, so to speak, American channel coming over.
To be honest, I don't really care too much about what other people are doing.
Yeah.
If it meant that we could kind of go to shows, I wouldn't really care I wouldn't care if ISIS had a YouTube channel in there, as long as I was in there. But yeah, like kind of next week is one that I feel that we should be at.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time, or had spent a lot of time around the gym. Obviously, speak to Shane most days.
When did you find out?
Anytime now, really. I have pushed hard for this one.
Yeah, you've even tweeted about it, dude.
Yeah, but again, it kind of comes back to I'm not necessarily bored. Bored's probably the wrong word. I've got a lot on at the minute, and I am busy, but I am chomping at the bit to go and get.
I think people actually miss your interviews as well, because it's very different,
and that's also kind of an opportunity for me to go and actually enjoy some interviews.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, like, if I've interviewed you on Zoom in the last year, it doesn't mean I've not enjoyed it or anything like that, but it's not the same. Like, human interaction and like, particularly like, you can't that fight week feeling of being around the fighters all week and kind of being absorbed into the story. And you could be involved in the story or absorbed in the story from a distance, but it's not the same as when you're there and you're right there. And obviously with kind of it being a bubble set up and, you know, my relationship with Shane and his guys, it would be good to be there. I think I'd be able to get a lot of good stuff. And yeah, I think at this point, I think I quite need to go. Yeah. I need to go, get off Twitter for a little bit and go and do my job. That's kind of how I feel about a Cody Glavatsky. Hopefully that happens. We had Lawrence in here a couple of weeks ago.
The rapper and author. Give him his title, please. Yeah.
Soon to be world champion. I think he does a good job on Glavatsky. Yeah. But yeah, so it would be good, mate. So that's kind of what's happening with shows at the minute. But look, it's not that far now until fans are back. And once fans are back, and that's kind of, you know, one of the things that I'm sure is getting back. Not only myself, but other people who are in a similar situation who aren't attending shows. You know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's difficult, and it's not just difficult for me. And it's certainly not woe me, because there's a lot of people who are in far worse positions than us, or you know, or anybody else. Like people who've lost their jobs, lost their house, or what have you. Yeah. But it doesn't make it. It doesn't really make it any easier, like missing out on the shows week in, week out. And obviously it affects business more than anything. Like we make, you know, we do better numbers, which is therefore we make more money.
Everything's built on while around boxing there.
So like in the last 12 months, with kind of how stressful it's been, and I don't think there's been shows for like 4 or 5 of those 7 months all in all. You know, when there is an opportunity to go to a show where I feel like makes a lot of sense for me to be at the show, I'd really like the opportunity. I'll behave myself as well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's guaranteed, if I'm honest with you.
It's just one of those things, mate. Things will open up soon, and we'll be back, and then all will be forgiven, all will be forgotten, and then we get on and go about things. But yeah, that's kind of the situation with me traveling. I think I'm going to be doing the American shows in May. Yeah. So I think I'll be doing Canelo Saunders.
Ooh, I'm trying to do that one as well.
Taylor Ramirez, and then there's another fight that's to be announced on May the 15th in America that will also be doing.
I love the way you kind of just tease that, like there's a big
Devin
fight.
Haney versus Jorge Linares.
Okay, that one.
Yeah, so that's on May the 15th.
So what's going on with Fortuna then?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, wasn't that fight supposed to happen?
We're due to talk about the lightweight. So let's move on to that now after kind of the YouTube talkSPORT boxing social violin. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. I put out a tweet the other day about Javier Fortuna. You know, like the WBC, like Mauricio's my guy. I love Mauricio. We get on really well, but there are certain things in boxing that are so frustrating. And one of the most frustrating things in boxing is the 135-pound WBC lightweight scene, like the lightweight scene of the WBC.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute mess since Mikey Garcia was down there. When Mikey Garcia was down there as champion,
very true, actually.
He went to move up to welterweight to box Errol Spence, was never coming back down to 135, didn't vacate his title for ages, held the whole division up. Luke Campbell was in line. Then Luke Campbell was due to box, I think at that time, was going to box Fortuna for a vacant belt. Or no, he was going to box Haney for the vacant belt. Then Lomachenko got drafted in. He boxed Lomachenko for the vacant belt.
By the way, I actually loved that Lomachenko got drafted in, but that's what caused the problem. I remember that when it was Luke versus Lom.
Because it doesn't happen often. It doesn't happen often. And like, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong. You want to see good fights. And there's nothing, you know, Vasily Lomachenko at the time was the best lightweight in the world. So him coming over to fight for is not necessarily the problem. But the fact is, like, would that have happened if he wasn't Vasily Lomachenko, if he wasn't such a massive name? Like the WBC, you know, ordering a fight with somebody who's not ranked in their top 15, not ranked by the governing body.
Let's just make up the rules as we go on.
The problem is, what does it do to the rest of the guys who've been fighting for ranking titles and trying to push themselves up the WBC? They get kind of gazumped, as it were, by somebody who's gone a different route. And admittedly, he's a superstar, and that's just the name of the game, and that's just business and boxing. But then since then, you've had like Campbell was supposed to. So then you had Haney box Abdullayev for the interim title, which didn't need to be an interim title because Lomachenko wasn't injured. So that was ridiculous. Lomachenko wanted to go and fight for the undisputed for the winner of Comey Lopez.
Yep.
So Mauricio put an interim title on the line for Haney Abdullayev, then upgraded him to full champion the week later. This is where it starts to get really confusing. Lomachenko then went to franchise champion.
Yes.
And then Haney got injured. Was made champion in recess. Luke Campbell and Javier Fortuna originally I don't know if this was actually ever announced or whether it's.
Well, they were going to fight for the right.
They were going to fight for the full title under the proviso that the winner would fight Devin Haney when he came back from injury.
Yep.
That stalled because of the pandemic and nobody knew what was going on. And then Haney was fit again, and then they reinstated him as the full champion. Then Luke Campbell, Fortuna was supposed to be for the interim title. Then I don't think either of them wanted to fight each other for the interim, only the full title. And then that's when we got Luke Campbell versus Ryan Garcia,
which is fine.
Yeah, no,
which is fine.
Like it worked out with some good fights, but the problem is like, and it's not because at the minute, obviously, a lot of boxing fans, well, it's not about the belts, it's about the fights. Yeah, okay, cool. But once you start messing around like this, and you kind of start making the rules up as you go along, you create anarchy in the sport. There's no structure left in the sport. Admittedly, it's down to the fighters anyway. So the WBC, the WBA, they can order whatever they want. It's up to the fighter. You can't force a fighter to fight something.
Yeah.
So it's up to the fighter. But it's becoming less and less kind of weighty what they're saying, because they're ordering any old fight based on any old thing, and they're skipping over him when it counts, and then they're elevating him when it counts, and they're putting Usyk-Joyce in the top 15 on the back of a loss when he hasn't boxed in a year. And it makes it muddies the waters a little bit. It makes it
a little bit.
Well, a lot, but it's more difficult to kind of to get a sense of who's doing what and where in the division. Look, I don't think Javier Fortuna beats Ryan Garcia or Devin Haney, but he deserves the opportunity to box them because he's boxed eliminators. He's supposed to have boxed for the full title, the interim title, the fucking diamond title, all of those titles. And now, like, unless he boxes Ryan Garcia, which I can't really see Ryan Garcia taking that fight. I think Ryan Garcia wins that fight, but if you're,
if you're Ryan, why roll the dice with Fortuna?
Why fight him?
Yeah.
Like, so then who does Javier Fortuna fight? Well, he's supposed to be the mandatory, but also Ryan Garcia is the interim champion who has the same rights as a mandatory. So
dude, I find it disgraceful.
It just doesn't make any sense. Look, from my experience with Mauricio, my experience with the WBC, my opinion, and I've said this before on the podcast, is that I think he tries to keep everybody happy. He tries. I've sat and I've listened to people lobbying for things, and everybody, it's difficult, man. You've got like all of these very powerful people in boxing telling you how great you are and what Mr. Mauricio, Don Mauricio, all of this.
Yeah, but
stuff.
that's why there has to be a simple ranking system, and someone wins and they go up. I mean, why are we confusing it? I mean, we've confused it with these franchise champions and super champions and silver belts. If you're a super casual trying to, like, you've explained it to me and I'm fine. Okay, cool. I understand it. It's muddy in the waters.
You have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine someone that's just like watching boxing for the first time. So say one of these YouTubers that have brought in this new crowd of fans, and you try and explain that to them, and what the hell is going on? Like, I just find it confusing. And I don't mind the Linares-Devin Haney fight. I think Linares is actually...
It's a good fight.
It's a good fight, right? I think Linares still has a little bit left in the tank, and we're yet to see what Devin's got. So I don't mind the fight. But again, for Fortuna, who's been waiting for his opportunities, and let's not forget those opportunities then equate to a payday. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke for him. And I feel sorry for him. I honestly do.
If you're the mandatory and you can't get a shot, then what chance have you got?
Yeah.
So, I think it's interesting to see what kind of comes from him. The lightweight division is now kind of starting to take shape. I remember kind of after Garcia Campbell, it was like, everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to get Haney versus Teofimo Lopez. We're going to get Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis.
People really don't know. That's not how it works. Someone asked me and I was like, yeah, well, maybe 2023. I didn't even say 2022. I was like, maybe we get one of those guys going at each other in 2023.
I said I don't think any of those hot shots at 135 would fight each other until they get to 140, at least.
There you go.
And I feel like that's what's probably going to happen. Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares, just mentioned it there, so talk about that fight first. I think that's a good fight. I think a skilled fight that's going to be. I think obviously we've seen Linares stopped even fairly recently. We moved up to 140, but we've seen him stop several times in his career. But
still comes back.
Exactly.
Back.
And he's the pedigree that he's got, and style wise, he's a brilliant fighter to watch. Lets his hands go, punches beautifully in combinations, good hand speed.
Dude, he's as sharp as they
He can box.
Yeah.
So
got a bit of pop as well.
Yeah. So this is the thing. I think that's a really good fight stylistically. I don't know if Devin Haney's going to have necessarily the punch power to. I'm sure if he catches Linares clean, he could hurt him, but he's not that type of fighter. We saw him against Usyk-Joyce, kind of pushing the foot on the gas. So
dude, I actually still don't know what type of fighter Devin Haney is. I've watched Devin Haney's fights now quite a few times. Like, you ask him about Gervonta Davis, I'll tell you he's aggressive. Teofimo Lopez, boxer, aggressive. Ryan Garcia lets his hands go. I'm still kind of undecided as to what Devin is, and I kind of sometimes wonder if Devin knows what he is. And maybe it's going to take a Jorge Linares type fighter for me to show, or for me to know what kind of fighter Devin actually is, because I'm still confused as to what he brings to the table.
He looks to me like a good all-rounder. He seems to do a lot of things.
Well, like a 7 out of 10 at everything.
Pretty much, like maybe apart from punching power. Obviously, punches hard enough. He scored a highlight reel knockout. I can't remember who he boxed in his Matchroom debut. There was that big, massive overhand right that he set up. Set up a lovely shot of a right hook to the body, and then turned it over into a big overhand right and scored that really brilliant knockout. But we've seen him kind of struggle to make dents in fighters since. I know he stopped Abdullayev on an injury, but that's not really, it's not really the same. Abdullayev as well, you have to question, how good was he really? So yeah,
Gamboa is the one, isn't it? Gamboa was the one where you fight. Look, I think Gamboa deserves to get a lot more credit than he gets, just because everyone says, oh, he's old and blah, blah, blah. Gamboa is still dangerous, but you've got to put a dent in Gamboa. I need to see a lot more.
Seasoned, isn't he?
Yeah,
Gamboa?
seasoned vet.
He got hurt by Davis early in their fight, and then he managed to kind of tough it out with a torn Achilles, and he's a really tough guy as well. Like, a lot of those Cuban guys have lived a serious life where they're tough men.
Yeah,
and Gamboa as well, defensively cute enough, and it's tough. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel like the goalposts always change or something like that. In the week of the fight, it was very much. Devin needs to look spectacular. We need to do this. We need to do that. And then after the fight was, we're glad he got the rounds. It's such bullshit.
I love that bullshit about the rounds. Yeah, we wanted to go 10 or 12. Like, no,
you wanted him to knock him out in the second round.
100%. Make a statement.
Yeah, but yeah, Gamboa, it's difficult because Gamboa didn't really show an awful lot of ambition late in that fight. And it's tough to knock out, an ex-Olympic gold medalist who don't want to be knocked out. And, somebody who's as talented as Gamboa. I mean, I did an interview with Salas in his gym in Vegas.
Yeah.
And he said to me, like, Gamboa, as far as kind of natural talent, like physical, like natural, like ability with speed and punching power, he's right up there with some of the best fighters.
Everyone expected him to be that guy, didn't he? 10 years ago, everyone was talking about Gamboa being that guy. I mean,
look at him now. He's boxing at lightweight. Like, I think he won gold as a bantamweight in the Olympics, or maybe even lighter than that. And then, obviously, he's had his best time as a professional as a feather/super feather. Certainly as a featherweight, he was a great fighter, very good fighter, a super featherweight. But yeah, I think he's
a good gatekeeper now. That's what he is. You don't even think he was a gatekeeper.
Well, no, it's not necessarily that. I think he can be competitive and give rounds to guys, but he's going to lose the fight. So against those kind of lightweight hot shots, do I want to see him against Ryan Garcia? No. Teofimo Lopez, no.
Oh, no.
Do you know? No. I don't really want to see those fights. I think you have to have sort of a chance of winning. I'm not sure he really has a chance of winning anymore. He'll give you rounds, and he's defensively astute, and you'll learn a lot from fighting somebody like Gamboa of his pedigree. But yeah, I don't think he's much of a threat.
Is a win for Devin Haney over Jorge. Say it goes points, right? And it could very well go points. Is that enough to satisfy the critics?
Well, I don't know, because people look at the fact that Linares has been knocked out and automatically say, well, you should knock him out. But we all know that boxing is not that simple.
Is it not?
And Devin Haney, stylistically is a beautiful fight. Like, both very skilled guys. They can both punch well in combinations, got good hand speed, they're athletic. I think that's a really good fight to watch. It's the sort of fight that I like. I don't get me wrong, no, everybody loves a toe-to-toe brawl and stuff like that, but I see a lot of skill in that fight. But I don't know, like, I think he deserves, like, this is where you're kind of weighed down by the belt, I think. Like, in this stage of his career, he's fought nobody.
And he's champion.
That makes him a world champion, in my opinion.
Agreed. Agreed.
And that's not to say he's not a good fighter. That's not to say he's not going to go on to become a very good fighter or possibly even a great fighter. But now people are expecting more from him than we should really be expecting of what a 21-year-old kid,
has a belt.
Because he's got the belt, which he shouldn't have had. Like, going back to the whole and people can talk all they want about the petition this for the franchise that, and the fact is he boxed Abdullayev, who had fought nobody, for an interim title when there was no need for an interim title and then was elevated. Everything else is just whatever. It doesn't matter.
Where do you have him in this special four that people like to say, although Gervonta's only had, one fight, 135 pounds?
Yeah, I got a lot of stick for this the other day.
Yeah, where'd you have him in there?
I think he's proved the least out of all of those guys.
Devin has.
Yeah, he's proved the least out of all of them. His best win is Gamboa.
Yeah.
Right? So, like,
that's shocking,
Ryan Garcia had a really good win over Luke Campbell.
It was.
Obviously,
was he better than you expected, by the way?
Who?
Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me as well. I didn't expect him to be as
I think the thing with him was like he had that arrogance.
He's a lot stronger than I thought he was, by the way.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago that he was 130 pounds. So it wasn't that long. I think it was a couple of years ago that he was 130. And obviously he's still growing. He's a young kid. But he seemed to fill out and like he was big in the ring and imposing in the ring.
In that Canelo camp, isn't it? I mean, it's a good camp to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was very good. I thought he was very good in the fight with Campbell. Obviously, he got hit and hurt and dropped. But I mean, Luke Campbell's a serious fighter.
I'm still adamant. And look, I understand what Luke says after the fight, and I understand what Shane said as well. But that's the point. I'm still adamant he's got to jump on him. I know he
not
got
that
up.
type of fighter.
He's not, is he?
No,
he's not.
Yeah, and also it's very.
And Ryan got up and he didn't look.
He was up at 2.
It was crazy, right?
He was up at 2.
What was such a heavy knockdown? He's
And he was up.
Yeah.
And he was fine.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, and this is something that I spoke to Shane about, and he said, like, you could hear the shots, like, from the first round, even the shots that were missing.
From Ryan.
Yeah. And even the shots that were missing, you could kind of hear them, like, flying past Campbell's gloves. And look, Campbell's been in there with a lot of fighters over the years, both amateur and pros. He's had some brutal spars over in Miami when he was with Jorge Rubio. Like, he would have known that if I go in here and I can get, if I
could see it from the first
he
round.
said that everything that he threw hurt, and he said he was a really heavy-handed.
That's
puncher.
crazy. That's something I never thought of. Look, we've seen Ryan. He's always got the speed, but I never thought he had the power. Never thought he had that.
It's kind of a combination of the two, isn't it? He's now filling out into his body and kind of going with that natural fast twitch muscle fibers, and
he's going to go through the weights, you know.
Yeah, I think
he'll definitely.
Yeah, I think
whether he ends up 147 or even higher, but he's going
could
through
go
the weights.
147 easy, 154. He could. It depends on how long he wants to stay in the sport. But kind of going back to what we were talking about with Devin Haney, I feel like he just hasn't shown it yet.
Yeah.
And that's not, that's not to say it's not there. That's not to say we won't see it. I think it's a shame that if he beats Linares, people will turn around and go, oh, well, Linares is washed. Look, Linares got knocked out like back-to-back fights years ago.
Dude, I remember being at the last fight versus Kevin Mitchell. Kevin Mitchell put him down hard.
So it's not like he's, it's not alien to him. It's not like he's been a great fighter and he's been unbeaten and now he's started to get knocked out. Like, this has always kind of been there and thereabouts. And anybody can go. Like, okay, he might be slightly more susceptible or vulnerable than your average kind of fighter of that level, which is still a tremendously high level. So I think it's a really good fight that Devin Haney deserves credit for if he wins.
The problem is, though, again, when you know what these guys are like, they all come at each other. And Gervonta's coming up saying, well, I just knocked out Leo Santa Cruz, whether that be at 130. Gervonta's also got Pedraza right on the resume as well. And I'm beating Pedraza at the time as well. And we saw what Pedraza did against Loma. You got Teofimo's obviously coming off, I thought, victory of, at the time, I think the pound for pound #1 in the sport and a good victory as well. And then you got Ryan is coming off Luke. And then you got Devin, the WBC champion, coming off that win against Gamboa and now Jorge.
But again, like, I think if he's not WBC champion, people don't really
no one
jump on him for that. This is like, I understand.
But then if he's not WBC champion, no one talks about it like the Four Kings.
Yeah, potentially. But like, why are people talking about it as the Four Kings anyway? Like,
I hate that.
Just like, let them do their own thing, and like all it's doing is kind of heaping on. Like, don't get me wrong, it's boxing. Everybody loves the hype in boxing. Like, we've all done it, and but I think like if you look at Devin Haney's record and who he's boxed, and then you went, okay, so he's boxed. Forget the belts, forget the other guys in the division, what they're doing. Who, by the way, they're not fighting anybody. I had to kind of say this to somebody the other day, and they would say, well, Gervonta Davis won't fight anyone. Well, Lopez is boxing Cambosos. You've got Haney boxing Linares. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with those fights, but it's not like
Gervonta's not fighting a killer in June or July.
None of them are because they're 26. Gervonta's the oldest out of all of them. He's 26. If he's 36 and he's not fought anybody, yes, okay. But, he's a world champion at super featherweight. I don't personally consider him a world champion at lightweight or indeed at 140 if he beats Barrios for the regular title. It's kind of up to people how they consider the WBA regular belt. But, he's doing okay for a 26-year-old fighter. He's headline pay-per-views. And, Leo Santa Cruz, while he was a significantly bigger fighter than Leo Santa Cruz is one of the best little men of the last few years, or the best little men. He's a very, very.
I actually enjoyed that fight until I was thinking.
It was a good fight,
very
right?
good
like
fight,
for pay-per-view as well. Like Santa Cruz came, he had a go, and he got ironed out, and that's kind of what you want for a pay-per-view and how a pay-per-view to finish. So, I think if you're Haney and you're forgetting everything that everybody else is doing, and you're just going from his record, then the Jorge Linares fight is absolutely ideal for this stage of his career, I think. So. Should he be boxing a mandatory? Yes, I think so. I think he should be boxing either Ryan Garcia or Javier Fortuna, as we've discussed. But the Ryan Garcia fight, again, that's not going to happen. That's like,
it's not even in terms of. I know a lot of people probably get excited and think, "Oh, it sells a lot." It doesn't sell a lot yet.
Not yet.
It's not,
no,
it's
you
not
want to
that
be
fight
maximising
yet.
that fight.
Yeah.
It depends as well, because I know that DAZN want that fight. Like, why wouldn't you want that fight? You've got, two different characters in Haney. Haney's very kind of reserved, quite serious young man, Devin Haney. Garcia's kind of like quite geeky, like very like was goofy. I think somebody would reply.
He is goofy,
a good word to describe him, but and they bring a different audience.
Oh, mate, yeah.
So I think that's a good fight. It's the type of fight that in an ideal kind of world, like Twitter boxing world, where you kind of go like, well, they could fight each other next year, and then in a couple of years' time have a rematch, and then they could have a trilogy at 147 or 154. All sounds great, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. Like. And those fights, with any big fight, want to be built properly, and people want to maximize their interest and their revenue from it. And it's not just the fighters who want to get paid, or the promoters, or the managers. It's everybody. Everybody wants to get paid. But being kind of a DAZN in-house fight, and obviously, Golden Boy and Matchroom have worked together a lot in the past. Don't know how the relationship is now.
I'm about to say now, it's Canelo. Come on, but it's not going to be easy anymore.
Yeah, Canelo turning up at the Ryan Garcia Luke Campbell fight.
Oh, the Matchroom face mask. Was it
Matchroom? Was it that fight?
It was that fight. Yes.
Yeah,
it was.
There,
yeah.
So that was an interesting one.
Eddie Hearn wearing those dodgy, bloody, I don't know what to call them.
Eddie's outfits.
Oh, man.
Crazier through lockdown, aren't they?
Jeez.
But kind of back to the lightweight scene. Yeah, I like Haney versus Linares. I think Lopez versus Kambosos absolutely fine. It's mandatory.
No problem with that. No problem at all.
Again, you're going to get people going.
On Triller's going to be interesting, though. I want to see how Triller make it look.
Have you not watched any of the Triller shows?
I watched Roy Jones Jr.
If they do that, I thought the production was really good. I
thought it was really good. And I was saying, I really enjoyed the production. Snoop was commentating. And then now, for Kambosos, Teofimo Lopez, I mean, are they going to get a real color commentator? No disrespect to Snoop, or are they going to use Snoop again?
Are you trying to say Snoop's not a real color commentator?
I mean, I actually didn't mind it. I didn't mind the weird and wacky way he was commentating.
Oh my God!
Yeah, God damn! But I don't know if they're going to do it like that.
That's what.
Yeah, that was the one.
No, I'd like it.
That should be an option, right? It should be a red button option to have that as a choice. Yeah. Do you want Max or do you want Snoop type thing? Yeah.
But look, I think it's really. I spoke to Vidal Riley about this recently. He's obviously like a big, YouTube star in his own right. To work with KSI and all of those guys, so he's kind of like my canary down the mine with YouTube boxing. I like to speak to him about bits and pieces like that, but also kind of the more digital boxing has become, the more we're seeing Triller and DAZN and companies like that kind of making their mark in sport. And I think it's really good, and it's exciting. The production is different. It looks great.
Looks clean, doesn't it? Really clean and sharp.
I think like a lot of people have kind of tried to go the kind of music and boxing and show and event feel and stuff, but I feel they've struck a nice balance.
Yeah.
Tyson Jones Jr. was actually all right. It wasn't bad.
Even the fight itself.
That's what I mean.
I expected the worst, and I was like, okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. That's the best of what I expected it to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, the fact that now Triller are kind of showing that they're looking seriously into boxing, like they've thrown a lot of money at that fight.
$6 million.
Really threw a lot of money.
$6 million. I mean, that's crazy.
So, they're at least on the surface of things, they're in it for kind of the long haul and the right reasons. And I think, whatever's going on with Teofimo Lopez and Top Rank doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound like there's going to be a happy ending there.
I just hope it doesn't. Look, obviously he's going to have the Kambosos fight. Fine. I just hope it doesn't keep him on the shelf like we've seen with like Mikey on the shelf for nearly 2 years. Andre Ward, exactly.
With Goosen as well.
So I hope it doesn't do that to him, especially not now when he's just starting to kind of become, I think,
I hope that doesn't happen either. Nobody wants to see that happen, but he would have known that is a risk when you sign a long-term deal or a multi-fight promotional deal, and then you kind of brazenly go to market the way he did. Not sure what the resolution is going to be with that, but obviously...
You don't mess around with Bob,
But we saw the leaked emails from Todd DeBerth and DAZN and stuff. That doesn't look good at all. I think that would probably... I'm not a lawyer, but I think that would probably see Mr. Lopez with... No, I'm not. Okay, I have to have one because I work in boxing.
I'm about to say.
But yeah, I think... Lopez will probably leverage that. I think he'll probably get out of his contract. And if Triller are that serious, and he's a great guy to invest in. If you're looking at kind of making a splash in boxing, that's who you want to be going.
I love how vocal he is as well. I just love the fact that he's actually doing things. I really like Teofimo Lopez. He's my number one, by the way, at 135 pounds.
Yeah, 135 pounds he is for me. I kind of drew a little bit of I don't know.
Wrath.
The wrath of boxing Twitter when I said I think overall as a fighter, and I don't necessarily expect or really care if people agree. I think I rate Gervonta Davis.
You know what it is?
I
It's
probably
1A, 1B. It's 1A, 1B. It's not even 1 and 2.
And I'm not talking about 135 pounds before everybody goes, well, he's only fought one guy at 135. Yes, I know that. I get that. But also, we spoke about this briefly off camera, since when did boxing become box rec boxing?
That runs the world, doesn't it?
I've watched Gervonta Davis since his professional debut. I've watched Teofimo Lopez early on in his
career.
I
watched Gervonta Davis over here.
Against,
when he fought
Liam Walsh.
Yeah.
But I mean, kind of going right back when he was boxing on Showtime undercards and 8-rounders and stuff like that. He's a serious talent, man. Serious talent. If they...
Can I look at his amateur
ironically,
record?
I kind of favour Lopez probably in a straight 1-3-5 fight with him. But I'm talking about overall as a fighter. I think he's the most complete fighter out of those guys, and people will say, well, he's boxed this guy or that guy, or he's not boxed this guy or that guy. He doesn't have the win of a Lomachenko, Lomachenko, of course not. But in my opinion, if that Vasily Lomachenko turned up against Gervonta Davis and did nothing for the first 6 rounds, he'd got knocked out. I don't think he would have.
Yeah, that's one thing that he's got right. He's got that.
He can
not
punch,
one thing, but he can hit.
He can box as well.
Hit.
And you hear all of these, you hear these ghost stories over the years. I've spoken to people who we had a guy, I can't remember his name now, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But we had a guy I interviewed him once, and he'd kind of been around the gyms and in Mayweather gym, and you can hear about all of these kind of stories of Gervonta Davis knocking out middleweights and super welterweights with head guards and 16, 18 ounce gloves. Obviously, he's heavy when he's sparring. He's kind of see him.
Dude, he's probably about 160.
He's a heavy guy, but he's a serious talent. I think the lazy comparison with him and Adrian Broner, I can't really make head or tail of it. It's not other than
they're not living the life.
There's a lot of fighters who don't live the life.
Yeah,
depends. Where what's living the life? Is living the life Bernard Hopkins?
Where you don't even touch a bottle of alcohol.
What's the level? Right? Fighters are not robots. This is why people
I think it's the
Floyd
staying in
Mayweather
shape thing that is a thing for
sure. But
when you see a fighter have a bit of a gut. And look, we've all got a bit of a gut.
That's why we're black. On the podcast.
That's why I breathe in. When you see that, I think it puts fighters off. I think it puts fans off. When you see a Tio looks like he's always in shape.
A lot of people like Roberto Duran, for goodness sake, in between fights. James Toney, fighters, they live the life. I say they live the life of a monk. It's kind of the exact opposite. But they live an isolated life where they have to sacrifice this,
for
sacrifice
about 4
that.
months. You're right, and then clearly after that you are going to do.
If you're fighting twice a year, that's 8 months in a year.
Burger King. I want Burger King.
Well, yeah, exactly.
James Toney.
Yeah. But they're not robots, and I'm not saying it's a good thing or it's even acceptable. But he ain't the first fighter, and he's not going to be the last. And just it's an easy, lazy comparison to make to Broner, just because they both trained with Floyd. They're both kind of are friendly and have been out and about together. Nobody says it really about Errol Spence.
Yeah.
Errol Spence gets heavy. Errol Spence gets drunk and gate crashes press conferences and the Charlos and stuff like that.
That Brady.
But there's a lot of fighters who are exactly the same. And it's
I think people may be saying that about Gervonta Bishop. We're making a comparison with Tio. Look, we don't know Tio personally, but I think because it is so close between them.
I don't think Teofimo Lopez lives the life of a saint.
No. 100% not. I don't. Well, I think more Saint than Gervonta, though. I would say. Who knows?
I mean, it depends, and I think again, a lot of people.
By the way, that's the fight I want to see more than all.
Yeah,
of them.
for sure.
Out of all that 4,
for sure,
that's the one I want to see more than all.
But we're doing it now. We're speculating on things that we don't really know about, and it's only okay, you see a photo of him or you see him on his Instagram
clip,
live. Do you know what I mean?
Doing some ab workouts,
and then. But it's also there's that, and it's box rack as well. You're kind of looking at who's he for? With respect, outside of Vasily Lomachenko, would you back anybody who Teofimo
I
Lopez
still like
has
Richard
beat.
Comey. I know what you're saying about Richard Comey. We spoke about it before about Robert Easton and he took his head off. I get that.
Respect for Richard Comey,
it's the way in
but
which he dealt with Richard
I just
that I
don't
like.
necessarily think that Gervonta Davis is. I don't think
Wouldn't ice him as well.
I don't think the fight necessarily goes any different. But like, also, what I'm saying is from watching fighters in the ring.
Yeah.
I think Gervonta Davis has more skills in his toolset right now. Admittedly, he hasn't done it against a Vasily Lomachenko. But he's done it against better opposition.
Yeah, but
Devin
I don't know if
Haney.
you can say admittedly he's not done it against a Vasily. You've still got to work out Vasily. And Tia worked him out for the first 6 rounds. And
but he was also significantly the bigger man and imposing. And, not taking away from what he did. He boxed really well. It's not
That's what it is.
It's not like Lomachenko just turned up to get beat for the first 6 rounds. Of course not. But also, I just feel like I feel like people now more than ever kind of rate people less on what they see in the ring and what they're seeing from people watching these fights than they do from seeing who they've fought or who they've ducked or who they've done this. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, he's not a good fighter. He ducked him. What the fuck?
How
that
do you
make
know?
that doesn't
How
say
do you
anything
even
about him
know
as a
that
fight.
shit?
Exactly.
Like, that's the one that
you
pisses
know
me
that
off
because Eddie said it in an interview or somebody said it on Twitter or something.
It makes me laugh.
That stuff.
But you're right. I hate the fact of when people just watch a fight. I've always said that to people, just watch a fight and then make your impression. Don't tell me based on, he fought him and he fought. I can't take that. Just watch someone fight. And you're right, Gervonta Davis is a great fighter. He's a great fighter.
A lot of trainers who I speak to will say the same thing about him. Like, everybody is very, very high on him. I believe if you know what you're watching with regards to boxing, and also...
Is he undersized, do you think?
I don't see him going much higher than 135,
That's it,
140.
That's the limit.
That Barrios fight's a good fight,
Dude, It's a risky fight,
massive.
This is it.
He's massive. And this is the thing, like people say, Davis is going to 140. He doesn't want to box any of the 135s. That is a harder fight than any of the 135s have got.
Let's hope he stays at 140 for progress.
Or but I don't think he will. I think he'll go up and do 140, get the regular belt, come down to 135.
Freeweight world champion.
Yeah, he is. But still, like, I think it's one of the annoying things, again, kind of mentioned this to you, like, you've got those 4 stars of the future. They're all brilliant fighters. If me saying, I think Devin Haney is...
I will say this, though. I do think you can chuck 5. I do think Shakur Stevenson's going to go up. Yeah.
Shakur Stevenson, you can
maybe
keep
even
going. Chris
Oscar
Colbert
Valdez
and people like
exactly.
that. But when you're talking about those guys, saying like Devin Haney, I think has shown as the least or is at the bottom of that pile, it's a pretty good pile. Like, just being the 4th best out of arguably 4 of the top 6 or 7 prospects in the entire sport.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Is pretty good.
This is what I hate. Like, I say this as well. I say Devin Haney's number 4, and I get like bollocks. I'm like, no, he's number. But look at number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, who am I removing?
It's the same as like a pound for pound list where somebody go, Terence Crawford at number 4. What a disgrace. You only think he's the 4th best fighter out of 18 different divisions with like a million fighters. Like, that's quite the compliment. When the difference between him being number 4 pound for pound and number 2 pound for pound is it's fractions. When you're dealing at that level of the sport.
Is that what you have him, by the way?
I don't even know. Pound for pound, I got more important things to do. But it's always the way with this. Like, for example, like somebody said to me, like, I think Gervonta Davis, personally, I rate him higher at this point in time as an all-round fighter, ever so slightly above Lopez. But with Lopez's win over Lomachenko and the Comey win, which is a good win, if somebody was to say, no, I rate Lopez
fair
higher,
dues, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with like the elite level prospects, or elite level fighters, or certainly they have the potential to go on and be like serious stars. So kind of having Lopez 1 or 1A or Davis 1B, or even if somebody wants to kind of make the point, I think it's probably slightly different, to be fair, with Garcia and Haney, because I don't feel like they have necessarily achieved what certainly Gervonta Davis or Lopez has. But you are kind of dealing with such fine margin with such great fighters in the sport. So it's a difficult one. Before we move on, we're kind of hovering around everything in the lightweight division. What about Lomachenko? Everybody's forgot about Lomachenko. No one wants to talk about him anymore.
I love Loma. I love him. I don't like the way he handled defeat with Teofimo Lopez.
No, I didn't.
It really kind of made me kind of go off him. I have once.
Yeah,
arrogant. He's an arrogant human being, very confident. Actually, there's that thin line between confidence and arrogance. Yeah, it's arrogance.
He is arrogant, but like, to be like a certain level of like he's a child like phenom since he was like could stand up and stuff. You have to have a special kind of switch, really.
You've got to be that. You've got to be the way he is.
Say to people, like, there's an aura about certain fighters.
He has that, by the way.
Yeah,
he has that.
I met him after Joshua Povetkin. And I sat down to interview him, Usyk, Egis Klimas. They were having dinner right after the fight back at the hotel. And I kind of sat down, I went to interview Lomachenko, and he come over. I'm a massive Lomachenko fan. Even now, I was thinking, fuck, it's Lomachenko.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then he sat down and I was like, oh, just, real pleasure. Like before we get started,
I love the way he's improved his English as well, by the way.
Yeah, he's done really well.
Yeah, he's done really well today.
So I said to him, like, I'm a huge fan of you as a fighter. And he went, and he was just like, get on with the interview. And so I was like, oh, shit. But that's the thing. He's probably had people telling him that since he was 3, 4, 5
My concern
years old.
with him now, look, first of all, he's got to go down in weight. I mean,
He
Oscar
ain't
Valdez.
gonna, though.
No, he's not going to. His ego fully understands. But the Oscar Valdez fight for me is the one he takes. That's the fight he takes. I remember watching them. I think it was in the World Championships. You can see it on YouTube, by the way. Fantastic fight. And I feel like they could do it again. I look at the injuries, though. He had the injury before the Pedraza fight. After the Linares fight. Had the shoulder surgery. Fought Pedraza too early.
And didn't look necessarily
like
great.
His
old self.
Against that one.
Pedraza. I think that was the first
time, I think, in a long time where he's actually lost. The Linares fight, he definitely lost some rounds where he got put down. But we saw the way he turned up against Linares was fantastic. He turned up a bit against Pedraza.
Yeah, he kind of pulled away towards the end of the fight, but he wasn't necessarily the same. Then
and when I saw
Crawler, then he broke his hand.
This is it, right?
Now
and then seeing that injury, I remember seeing I don't know what it was, like the pins through his shoulder after this Teofimo Lopez fight.
397 amateur fights.
His body's done.
And he's boxed at a ridiculously high level as a professional as well.
Body's done. A fight like him that requires so much movement.
Yeah.
He's just not going to be that guy.
He's a little guy, man. They don't go on forever. And when you fight that all action style that he's had, and you have all of those amateur fights which are really intense, really like over a shorter distance.
Yeah. Back to back as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you're making the later stages, which he did, he made the latter stages of pretty much every single tournament he ever entered.
Think about that for a second. He's going deep in every single
and you're
tournament.
on weight that whole time. So it's
and he's got these weird training methods, which are good.
A lot of fights as well. 397 amateur fights is a lot of fights. So
it's unbelievable amount of fights. The pressure of winning every fight, it's taken its toll. And look, he's fighting out of his weight category. Like, everyone talks about him going down to 130. He could make 126.
Yeah, if he had to.
Yeah, if he had to, he could make it. So he's way above his weight category.
Yeah, and I don't feel like it's kind of boxing, isn't it? He's the best pound for pound fighter in the world. One day he's an overrated featherweight. The next day when he loses. So I feel like people haven't necessarily given him the due credit that he deserved. He was, a couple of rounds or winning a couple of rounds away from being. Actually, I don't think that's how it was scored in the end. I think a couple of the cards were really wider in the favour of
me
Lopez.
watching it though. He was only a couple of rounds down.
Yeah, same. I had it 7-5 to Lopez. But he could have become undisputed champion in his third best weight class.
It's crazy,
Never a lightweight.
It's crazy.
Never a lightweight. But
Devin Haney needs that fight desperately.
I think that's a good fight. I can't see that
Devin
happening.
Haney needs it desperately. I
With
know
kind of Bob
they've
and
called each other out on
Eddie's-
social. Well, Devin called him out on Twitter, and Vass is like, "Why are we having Twitter talk?"
Yeah,
like,
he doesn't strike me
Loma's
as
like, I don't want to do this. Yeah.
doesn't strike me as a tweeter.
It's not
I'll
even him
take over
tweeting.
Lomachenko's Twitter account. I'll get him a fight at the end of the week, man. Don't worry. I mean, Lomachenko versus Billy Nelson.
Easy. Has he not blocked you yet?
I don't care what Billy Nelson's doing. Anyway, moving on. We're kind of talking about Vasyl Lomachenko there, and I think it feeds in nicely to Oleksandr Usyk.
Yeah.
Somebody who's similar, had a lot of amateur fights and fought at a ridiculously high level as well as a professional, and that takes its toll on the body. We've seen him moving up to heavyweight again, kind of out of his natural weight class. Started to slow down a little bit. He's had some injuries. 1 or 2 fights been pushed back.
A lot of inactivity in the last couple of years. Yeah.
The fight, obviously, that we're waiting on, we don't know what's going on with it or when it's due to be announced. I think the WBO have got some things on their plate at the minute. Is him against Joe-Joyce. Big juggernaut, Joe-Joyce.
Good performance, right, against Daniel Dubois. Solid.
very good, but inevitably because it's boxing, he just beat a kid who wasn't ready. And
it's all changed now. The narrative's changed. It wasn't knocking out the knockout
everybody
artist.
was freaking picking Dubois to knock him out in 6 rounds, but after the fight, it was an undeserving kid who was in the ring with him. But anyway, Usyk-Joyce, I think that's a really interesting fight. I think it's a much different fight from a stylistic point of view than it would have been when they boxed in the WSB when they were both lighter.
How much smaller did Joe Joyce look in that, by the way?
Really,
watching
really
it now,
small,
I'm like, Jesus, he looks like an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
There. It's unbelievable.
He's and obviously Usyk was much more lighter and fleet of foot back then, which was what gave Joyce a lot of problems. But we've not really seen that from Usyk, not as a heavyweight. We saw Chizora have some success early in the fight. It's important to, I think, point out that Chizora, nobody fights like Chizora in the heavyweight division. He's like
Chizora's a nightmare to fight.
Yeah, and up for it on it.
If you haven't got the thing to dent him, if you've not got that Wilder or Joshua power to dent him, that's hard work for anyone.
Yeah.
You'll beat him if you're any good, but you've got to get his respect early because he would just keep on coming for 12 rounds. And I think that was a problem for Usyk in that fight. I was speaking to Declan Taylor about it. Yeah, and Deck was like, a lot of people were giving Usyk stick for that fight, but he watched it thinking, this is kind of easy for Usyk. So he's watched it differently.
After the first few rounds, I thought Usyk would stop him eventually. Yeah. I think it was the 7th round.
Started to turn it up, doesn't
he? I think he hurt him at the end of the 6th round. Chisora went back into the ropes, and then I spoke to Alex Krasiuk, obviously promotes Oleksandr Usyk, or was co-promoter with him with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. And inevitably, will he hurt his hand? And he was gonna stop him, and then he hurt his hand.
It's almost like they press a button of excuses and maybe which one should we?
Didn't stop him.
Didn't stop. Yeah, hand injury. Yeah, we used that one.
Tony Benny tells that story, doesn't he? About Eddie Hearn came into his dressing room after cleverly Bellew 2, and he said, "What was that?" Or was it? I think it was that, or the Chilemba. Like Bellew's been in a couple of shockers, like the cleverly rematch, and that both of the Chilemba fights were bad. And he said to him, like, "You hurt your hand, did you?" And he went, "No." He said, "Yes, you have."
I stopped sparring 7 weeks out. There's quite a few ones in it. I stopped sparring. Yeah,
he had a cold on.
Making weight was always hard. But
really struggled at the weight and stuff like that. But back to kind of Usyk-Joyce. I think a much closer fight now than people would have assumed.
Much closer. But then again, it's how much stock do you take from the win against Daniel Dubois? Like again, if we are going to play that card, people are planning saying Dubois was a novice coming through. I mean, Usyk's going to show him so many different looks. Dubois was just straightforward. I'm going to come straight at you and just try and land that big right.
Yeah,
Usyk's going to show him so many different looks.
Well, not to be kind of an expert after the fact, I think it was obvious during the Dubois-Joyce fight, and there were certain things that Daniel Dubois did that kind of showed his inexperience a little bit. Yeah. And that's it's to be expected. He never boxed as a senior, as an amateur, and turned over, and he's done all of his learning on the job.
I mean, his last fight before was Fujimoto. Come on, Frank.
Yeah, so like
let's put him on Fujimoto.
Ricardo Schneider's, Ebenezer Tete, Fujimoto.
Jeez.
Schneider's.
I forgot that. Yeah.
So Ricardo Schneider's boxed on the same card as Joyce boxed Michael Wallace.
Yes, yeah.
Or was it? I don't think that was on the same card in the end. It was initially supposed to be Dubois versus Eric Pfeiffer.
Eric Pfeiffer. They were not happy that fight got canned. By the way.
Oh yeah, Pfeiffer's team. Yeah, so I heard from the street and
the street, the wire
and Pfeiffer's team that or that they felt that the fight was made before they'd really looked into Pfeiffer's
basically
credentials
looked into him,
and this is what Pfeiffer's team said. Please don't sue me. And it kind of. That's obviously with the big fight that they had with Joyce kind of down the line.
Yeah,
they didn't want to impact it, which you can kind of understand. But also, you can't go from that to Ricardo Schneider's, or who's like a
dude,
the second best cruiserweight in Holland or something.
It's
I think
bad.
So
I mean, like as much as everyone was excited.
So I mean, you can kind of. Obviously, it's still a good win, and it was a very good performance from Joyce. And also, he took a lot of shots in that fight that would have ironed out a lot of other heavyweights. He's got that blockhead, cinder block head, Joe Joyce. So he can really hold a shot, and if he couldn't hold a shot, he'd have probably
he can hold a shot. He's got a gas tank. He's got a good jab.
So
he's solid.
Really live in that fight. I think stylistically, it's a really good matchup. It's you've got the bull against the matador.
Yeah.
I still favoured Usyk in that fight. I think
there's not many heavyweights I favoured to beat Usyk. if I'm honest with you.
Fury,
I know, Fury definitely. Fury's the only one that I can 100% say.
Definitely, but
No, Fury definitely.
Fury kind of been on record when he did the Joe Rogan podcast and he was talking about like the most difficult fight he had was Steve Cunningham because you couldn't fucking get hold of him. He was a cruiserweight and he was nipping around.
He moves so much better than that now. I've watched that Cunningham fight.
Yeah, but he's a completely different fighter.
And like you said,
he's a completely different fighter from the first Wilder fight to the second Wilder fight. So obviously since then, but like, you know, those kind of things that he's never fought somebody of that dimension since. You know, a small, nippy ex-cruiserweight who can give you angles and get around the ring. So we've not seen him against that type of fighter. Can you
imagine Usyk though thinking like, geez, this guy is massive and moves around as well. So I can imagine Usyk looking at him thinking, like, gee, you move around for such a big guy. He's going to put his weight on him. I just think Fury is, for Usyk, a stylistic nightmare as well.
Yeah, because I think like what Usyk does well, Fury can also do.
This is it, right?
And he's bigger and has kind of the natural advantages. But yeah, I do still fancy Usyk in that fight, but I think it's a really good fight.
Yeah, let's hope it happens. It is a really good fight.
Let's hope it happens. I think, look, it's a story as old as time, particularly recently in boxing, like with Canelo and Mayweather, and obviously go back to like De La Hoya and even before then, Leonard and what have you. You know, everybody's waiting for the money fights or the money fighters to decide what they're doing. Look, if you're Oleksandr Usyk, do you want to commit to the Joyce fight without knowing that AJ Fury's happening?
This is right.
Because
this is it.
You're
waiting.
For the vacant
Honestly,
WBO title.
You're waiting.
Yeah,
you're waiting.
And he should be fighting for the world title in his next fight. Again, this is kind of not to be confused with, I don't want to see AJ Fury. Of course I want to see AJ Fury. I want it for all the belts. But again, you can't pick and choose when you follow the rules. You can't, with one instance, the mandatory is important. The mandatory, he's been waiting 1,000 days, blah, 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 blah. And then on this hand go, we'll just push it back, or you can fight for an interim belt.
But I have to be honest with you though, I hate the WBO ruling or any ruling, but especially the WBO one where, you know, you're a champion in the weight class below and then you come up and automatically you're in line to fight for the... I'm like, what?
Whether people like it or not, it is the rules.
It is the rule.
And it's not changed.
And it needs to be the rules, yeah, so we don't have what we're having now.
I think like with stuff like that, it should be the same across all of the sanction bodies. Because what you do then, I mean, if you look at kind of Top Rank and the way that Top Rank have kind of dominated the WBO title from like 118 pounds upwards or 122 pounds upwards in recent years, it seems like every time a Top Rank fighter wins a title, they move up, leave it vacant for the next Top Rank fighter to come up and fight for it because you have that WBO slipstream.
This is it.
There's always that chart that goes around on Twitter from Deuce Ranger Rollins on Twitter where it's like, it shows you like a key for which promoters have got which.
It's crazy
titles.
when you see it like that, isn't it?
You kind of look from the WBO from 118 to like 175.
It's
it would
all
have
top
been
rank.
Around, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it would have been around there. And obviously, apart from like, there are exceptions before somebody goes, whoa, 168.
But the majority of them are top rank. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I'd like to see rules like that either applied everywhere or just not. I don't think it helps to really just have one or t'other.
Yeah.
Or just have one and not have everybody else follow it. It doesn't make any sense. Same with like the Bridgerweight division. But anyway, we're going off topic. With Joe Joyce boxing Oleksandr Usyk, it also leads us to another heavyweight fight. Interested to get your view on this. As you say, we did discuss the merits of pay-per-view boxing at the start of the podcast. Derek Chisora versus Joseph Parker.
That's embarrassing if that's on pay-per-view.
Well, I'm not making it on pay-per-view.
No, it's embarrassing. I mean, like, how can someone coming off a loss, and I like Chisora, I've interviewed him, great character, but the facts are the facts now. Chisora's had 10 defeats. 10 defeats is a lot. And look, we don't want to put people down that have had 10 defeats because Chisora always brings it. We just spoke about that, right? And Chisora is a fight that's always going to bring it. But the fact he's coming off a loss and Joseph Parker stunk out the place against Junior Farr. So what's the sell here for a pay-per-view? I like a backstory. I like a sell. Don't set it on the fact that they were supposed to fight 9 months ago, whatever it is, in a spider. Yeah, don't set up that. Joseph Parker looked awful and Chisora lost. Now, I know what Eddie's going to say. Eddie's going to say something like, we're going to stack the card. Right, we're going to do that. And that's kind of what he done for Bellew Cleverly. Remember all those, put all those names on it. I remember DeGale's on it and everyone
Groves,
was on it. Yeah.
Jamie McDonald.
But everyone that he could on it, even though they were in crap fights, he just chucked names. And look, he's going to try and stack it again, but that should not be a headline pay-per-view main event. If you're going to do a fight like that, that should be on the undercard of a Fury AJ. Put that on the undercard of it or something. But having that as a main event on pay-per-view and asking people to pay 20 quid during these times for that, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough for what is one of the biggest promoters in world boxing right now.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what they do with the card, I don't think it really much matters.
Yeah, what could
because
go on the
ultimately
card?
that's the that's the headline.
Exactly.
Ultimately,
So
that's the
everything
headline.
else is going to be lesser on it. I mean, if you had, and look, we were hoping that Kelly, well, I say hoping, but if Kelly came for Avanesyan and Kelly Ben on that would have been, but there's nothing on there that's going to attract me to still say this is worth a pay-per-view event.
Well, would it? Yeah.
Well, look, we'll see what happens, but I'm not happy with it.
It shouldn't be a headline. I think
exactly.
I tweeted as soon as as soon as it was kind of it's reared its head quite a month or so ago, and I think it does work as a good co-main, which is what it was
absolutely.
initially to Josh Taylor versus Regis Prograis. It was that perfect.
Chisora didn't feel so.
But since then, he's lost. Since then, Joseph Parker I think he boxed Sean Del Winters after that in an underwhelming performance.
Dude. Joseph Parker's stock, I love him, but he's stock as a boxer. Everything else he does is fantastic.
Know where he's at the minute.
I've always had him as a top 10 because I always thought in my head I can't name 9 other heavyweights that beat him. Now I can. He needs to do something big for me.
It's difficult because I don't know where he's at. What is he boxing for? You've been world heavyweight champion.
You've had a couple of big pay-per-view
massive paydays against Anthony Joshua, against Dillian White. He would have got paid well for the Andy Ruiz fight that he had in New Zealand. That would have been pay-per-view. The fight that he had against Junior Farr
would have taken the lion's share against Hugh Fury, obviously, as well. Let's not forget that. Yeah.
The fight a couple of weeks ago with
massive,
Junior Farr
by the way,
would have been big down
massive.
there.
Yeah.
They had a gate, full packed out arena. It was pay-per-view.
They expected that to be the biggest pay-per-view event ever in New Zealand.
Yeah, but they had what was the other one?
Shane Cameron, David Tua.
David Tua, yeah.
But they were even saying they expected to do bigger numbers than they bought in for Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, so everyone loves a domestic fight, and particularly I think a lot of the kind of stars aligned for that fight.
Yeah,
being able to do it with fans in New Zealand, and it was also there was something on the line for that fight.
What was it?
I think Parker was number 3 with the WBO, or number 2, and Farr was number 5.
Got the Oceanic belt as well, I think it's called.
Yeah, which is everybody dreams of that belt. When
of course you do, man. But he did say, to be fair, it was a lot of street cred, right? It's both 2 guys from Auckland.
Yeah,
they've had their amateur scraps, so it was a lot of street cred.
Bragging rights.
Yeah. But yeah, that shouldn't be a pay-per-view. But I actually like the fight.
I was going to say, who do you like in the actual fight?
Parker.
Okay.
I still think there's something there for me with Parker. I watched the last couple of rounds against Dillian White, and I think, there's something there, man. Just be a bit more aggressive. So I like Parker in that fight.
But we've not seen it since. Kevin Barry said after that fight, we need to see. I think we need to see some mongrel from him. We need to see that dirty junk house dog, which is what we lost the fight to Dillian White. That's the reason that they lost the fight. With that, he believes they lost the fight. And look, Parker maybe just doesn't have that in his DNA. He's
so nice, isn't he?
He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. Not
Honestly,
even necessarily
so nice.
just in boxing,
Yeah.
but and he's made these massive paydays. He's by all accounts, he's missed home. Like every time I'd travel to Vegas and see him, he'd have another kid at home. And that can't be easy. And he's like a viral sensation. You remember? Throughout lockdown, he became
they
a
were
huge
amazing.
Yeah. So he's got a lot of other things that I think his interests are probably interest in getting punched in the face by 18, 19 stone men's probably waning. I can't really blame him for and what he's achieved will never be taken away from him.
That is so interesting that you say that, because look, we never think of things like that. But you're right. I mean, if you've ticked all the boxes, and he didn't expect to tick these boxes, by the way. I mean, you want to, but I don't think many people would have thought that Parker was going to be a world champion and do massive pay-per-view numbers. He's made some money, a lot of money. He's got a lovely wife, kids. Maybe he's just I don't really want to do this anymore.
I think one more big fight.
This is it, right? Is this it? Is this the one?
I think if he loses...
Oh, yeah.
Where does he go from here?
If he
wins this, then it'll be a big fight that,
yeah, then he maybe fights the winner of a Hrgovic Hunter. I've always wanted...
No. If you're Joseph Parker, you beat Chisora.
You want a world title.
You want a world title.
He ain't getting that. He ain't getting that.
If he becomes mandatory with the WBO, he will get it eventually. And also, it's not like Usyk or somebody else. With the greatest of respect to Parker, we've seen him against Dillian White come up short. We've seen him against Anthony Joshua come up short. If you're the WBO heavyweight champion, say Usyk beats Joyce for the interim belt and then gets elevated to full champion, because when stuff like that happens, you have to box a mandatory in your first defense. Is he going to be particularly?
And he is number 3? Or was he number 2?
Parker was 2. Farr was 5, and he just beat Farr.
Okay.
So I actually thought, and
5 minus 2.
my original kind of
He should be
thoughts
fighting Usyk for the interim. It
was
shouldn't
that-
be Joe-Joyce.
was that.
Yeah.
But Usyk-Joyce is a bigger fight, and obviously there are other forces at play.
What
with
forces?
that. Well, it all kind of goes to Mr. Fury and Mr. Joshua and seeing
Yeah.
what's happening there, and you know we could talk all day about that, but you've got 6 minutes before you've got to go to
Work.
So before you go and do that, let's talk about Joshua Fury. We got 6 minutes to discuss Joshua
Fuck
Fury.
me, son.
First one, do you think the fight's going to happen?
Want or think?
Think. Everyone wants the fight to happen, unless
Yes, you're right. You're
that
right.
Artman boxing guy on Twitter.
Dude, you know what it
doesn't
is?
want it to
It's weird how it's so changed. Like, I remember I've done so many videos on this, and I was like, 90% going to happen. Then I'm like, it's done. It's 1 trillion%. Now I'm like, why is it all gone quiet again? Like in the last week or so, it's gone quiet again. And I'm like, that's not a good sign. So I don't think it's going to happen. And I said this on my channel, that the only reason I don't think it's going to happen is because of Fury.
going to happen or happen next?
Going to happen next, sorry, is because of Tyson Fury. I said Fury not fighting Caballero in December could be a problem here, because Fury has openly spoken.
Can he legally fight Caballero? Could he have legally fought him? Can he legally fight Anthony Joshua?
Well,
that's the question.
We don't know because of
exactly
him.
Exactly. And this is, again, like, boxing is so divided. Like, in general, it's so divided. And you know, there's an awful lot that we don't know, and just, you know, everybody in the sport doesn't know unless you're in the know. And, you know, with stuff like that, we just don't know. We've not heard anything. I've spoke to Shelley Finkel once a month.
He's the guy I want to hear from.
last
I
year.
actually don't want to hear from Eddie anymore on this subject. I want to hear from Shelley Finkel on this subject.
I've tried a lot.
Yeah?
Once a month for the last year, pretty much. And I'll tell you what, I'll message him right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to message him
Imagine
right
we could
now.
get him on the speaker right
Now,
now.
he'll be asleep in New York, but whatever. But yeah, and we don't really know what the situation is going to be there. If Fury is tied up with this, and, you know, Al Heyman and Shelley Finkel weren't born yesterday, they'll know exactly what they can do and what they can what they can't do, and what the contract would have allowed them to do, and obviously the pandemic pushing everything back. But yeah, it's a strange one. We've been told. I mean, the fight was done last June.
Remember that? When that's all
Fury
signed.
announced
Yeah.
it,
We
the
just have
fight
to.
was
Yeah.
done, and then it was kind of reared its head again before Anthony Joshua boxed Kurat Pulev. There was the whole, you know, if Fury's going to fight in December, why not fight AJ? Or like, well, there was
Obviously that
which
easy
was
to
fun.
make.
Yeah, exactly. In the middle of a pandemic, make a massive cross promotional super fight between two heavyweights. But anyway, and then it was 2 weeks. I think I did an interview with Eddie the first week of January, where I think he said 4 weeks. And then
Those 4 weeks have passed.
And then 4 weeks later, he said 2 weeks, and that's passed. So look, one thing I will say is that these fights are not. Well, I don't know because I've not done it, but like history tells us that these fights don't just come together like that. It's not going to be that easy. When you factor in the fact that there's been a global pandemic, we don't know where there's going to be fans, who can travel, who can do what. My kind of biggest thought on it is, knowing the way boxing works and the way boxing is, and kind of how everybody needs, we mentioned earlier, everybody needs their slice of the pie. In
Too
a
many
fight
cooks in
like
the kitchen, by the way.
How do you say no to a $50 million gate? How do you just go, okay, well, you know, we could wait 6 months and make an extra $50 million.
Yeah.
But, you know, let's do it for the fans. Right, let's do it now. We want it now.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't happen. It's not to say that it's not going to happen. But it doesn't. That's not what history tells us.
The idea of rolling the dice with this. Okay, let's just hypothetically say it doesn't happen. So then it's AJ versus Usyk, right? Unless AJ vacates.
Happens.
Yeah, unless AJ vacates, and I would suggest he vacate. Usyk could be AJ.
He could do.
Yeah, it could be AJ. Fury versus question mark. I mean, we're rolling the dice too much here. We've done the same thing with AJ versus Wilder, which was also going to be the biggest heavyweight fight of all time. And then all of a sudden, AJ gets beat by Ruiz, Wilder gets beat by Fury. We're missing out on these big fights all the time because we keep fucking rolling the dice. At least we got that one.
We did. We got it twice.
Yeah.
I think we'll get it a third time. Personally. I think
if you had to put your money on it, that's what you think is going to happen.
Wilder Fury 3 at some point.
Before we see AJ Fury.
I don't necessarily know about that, but I think we'll see Wilder Fury 3 at some point. Because why would he not have announced the fight?
Dude,
Like,
there's a sell. You can sell that fight with all the crap Wilder has
it
spoken.
would be absolutely mental. Going
Yeah.
The build up for it
It would
be
be actually quite dangerous
wild.
and it would be dangerous.
dark, man.
Very,
Really
very
dark.
dark. You know, whoa,
Well,
this is
yeah,
18 certificate
Twitter
stuff.
would be lively,
Dude.
during the build up to that.
What is those the Wilder fans? LBD. They're called something. I don't know what they're called. They're called something, and they're mental.
LDBC.
They're mental.
Lions Den Boxing.
Okay, that's what they're called. They're not
I didn't
correct.
know what that stood for until like 6 months ago.
Still didn't.
Yeah,
That's a shame. If it doesn't happen, it's a shame.
Interesting bunch. Look, I don't know if Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury is or isn't going to happen. I've kind of, like a lot of things after lockdown, I've kind of gone, or during lockdown and COVID, I've kind of gone, do you know what? Just wake me up when it happens. Wake me up when I'm allowed out. Wake me up when AJ Fury gets announced. Just leave me alone. Leave me to tweet about
that's
Liam Williams and Demetrius Andrade and what have you. But yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll see kind of how the land lies. I'm expecting, some sort of announcement on some sort. I think once somebody announces something in the heavyweight division, the others will fall into place.
Domino effect, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about all we have you for, because you're a very, very busy man. You have to go and shoot over to talkSPORT HQ. So
yes, sir.
Off you go. Go and do that.
Thank you, my man. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. We covered precisely.
It's a shame we didn't get to chop up Okoli Glowacki.
Yeah.
What do you call him? I call him Glowacki.
Glavatsky.
Glavatsky. Fucking hell. If I butchered it that much then. Wait, how have I just made up Glowacki then?
Glowacki.
Jeez.
I'll talk
I think I listened to American broadcasters. I'm sure they said it. When he beat Marco Huck, I'm sure they said Glowacki.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't listen to American broadcasters on how to pronounce the English language.
Yeah.
Even though it's a Polish
Even
name.
it's, I know what you mean, yeah.
But,
European.
Yes. But no, thank you very much. I think I'll chop up Okoli Glavatsky with my man Barry Jones.
Fuck's sake.
Looking forward to seeing him later. So yeah, thank you very much for stopping
Cheers, Rob.
by
Thanks for having me.
for episode 14 of the Boxing Social podcast in association with Betfred. Thank you very much for stopping by today. I've been your host, Rob Tebbutt. He is your co-host, Ade Oladipo. We'll catch up with you soon.
Peace.